Our Inspirational Indie Authors podcast stream is proudly sponsored by Book Vault. Sell high-quality print-on-demand books directly to readers worldwide and earn maximum royalties selling directly. Automate fulfillment and create stunning special editions with Book Vault Bespoke. Visit bookvault.app today for an instant quote. I'm Howard Lovey of the Alliance of Independent Authors and book editor at howardlovey.com. And you're listening to Inspirational Indie Authors. Every episode, I interview an ally member to find out what inspires them and how they are an inspiration to other authors. My guest this episode is Yvonne Vincent, who began her path to becoming a full-time author with a Facebook blog called Growing Old Disgracefully, writing humorous posts about everyday life. During lockdown, the Scottish author turned these posts into a book, which unexpectedly became a bestseller. That success led to more books, a loyal readership, and eventually the leap to writing full-time. I'll let Yvonne Vincent tell her story.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Vincent. I'm the indie author of the Losers Club series, and a couple of sliding doors moments propelled me into a career I never dreamed I'd have. I started a Facebook blog in 2018 called Growing Old Disgracefully, and during lockdown, I was immunosuppressed, so I was shielding, which means I was confined to one room for about 4 months. And as I was blogging away all the rubbish of the day, the people who follow my blog, they encouraged me to write a book. They said you should put all these posts into a book. And I didn't have a clue what to do, and I felt extremely uncomfortable putting myself out there. But I did. I compiled the posts into a book and added about 50% of the book was narration of all the other things that were going on around that time. And I thought I'd sell a few copies just to the people who followed me online, but I didn't. I sold 10,000 copies and the book went to number 50 in the Kindle charts.
That's amazing.
But, yeah, I know. And I was absolutely gobsmacked, but I hadn't a clue what I was doing.
We'll go more into that part of your story a little later.
Yeah.
But let's, first of all, I love growing old disgracefully. That's, I'm 59 going on 60 right now, and I don't plan on growing old gracefully myself either.
Definitely not.
So I'm going kicking and screaming. But let's start at the beginning. Where did you grow up, and was reading and writing always a part of your life?
Oh, yeah. I grew up in Aberdeenshire, that's in the northeast of Scotland. And as a kid, I just permanently had my nose in a book. And I used to absolutely love writing poetry. And I used to create all these little poetry books and stories and things from my parents. And I'd colour in the edges of the books to make them look like, old books. Mm-hmm. How they've got the gold-edged paper, but I would use a purple colouring pen. And I was absolutely mad on old books as well. I used to collect them as a child. Any books I could get my hands on were mine. So I think that from an early age, I always loved reading. However, I'd never lost the reading, but I lost the desire to write as I grew up because I had my own kids, and I just, as an adult, you just lose sight of things and life takes over.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think it was that, that break in lockdown where you just all of a sudden you're not commuting, you've got more time. I was stuck in one room anyway. I was working from home, but I had just had so much more time. And I think I had more time to write the posts that were going onto my blog as well. So the posts themselves were better. Mm-hmm. And then it just kind of grew from there.
What did you do when you worked from home?
I actually worked for HMRC, which for the benefit of any American listeners is like the IRS.
Okay.
But don't ask me anything about taxes because I don't know anything.
I have a list of questions for you, but we'll tackle that some other time.
Yeah, I managed project managers. Mm-hmm. That's what I did.
Okay, so you're good with numbers, which makes you kind of an outlier as a writer too, right?
I don't think I'm particularly fantastic with numbers, but I did do a university level maths course and discovered to my surprise that I love maths. I absolutely love maths. And I think I hated maths at school. And I think it was really, I just assumed that I wasn't very good at it. But, oh, sorry, that's my dog's barking.
Oh, that's all
But
right.
looking back on it, it was the teachers, I think, rather than me. Yeah, I think I just didn't have teachers that instilled much confidence. But when I went on to do, I was doing a computing degree and I discovered that I could actually do maths and I could do maths at quite a high level. And I really, really enjoyed it, which was surprising because I'd always assumed that languages were my thing.
Right.
However,
Right.
you learn things about yourself when you try new things, don't you?
Absolutely. So while you were working, did you always have the secret desire to write, or did that not really come up until, you started blogging in 2018?
Yeah, I think that it was when I started blogging that it all came back really because I life took over and I had kids and just everything, was happening and I was very focused on my career and all the rest of it. But when I started blogging and starting blogging pushed me well outside my comfort zone. It was friends who kept saying these things you post on Facebook are really funny. You should start a blog. Then I actually really discovered that I liked it. I liked making people laugh. I loved it when somebody came and just said, "You brightened my day."
Hmm.
And I think that's probably why I ended up writing books which are full of humor. And yeah, I think
Well,
sorry,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
pushing yourself outside your comfort zone is a good thing
Hmm.
because it allows you to discover so much more about yourself and your talents and all the rest of it. But it's never an easy thing. Yet all these people were telling me to do it, so I just did it. And if I
Right.
hadn't done it, I'm so grateful to them because if I hadn't done it, I don't think I would ever have got as far as writing a book.
What kinds of things did you write about in your initial Facebook posts and blogs?
Just the absolute nonsense of daily life. It can be the little things in life that we all share, whether you iron your tea towels or, just daft things like that. Nothing really spectacular, but I was able to turn what might be a humdrum event into something funny. Just going to the gym or sitting in the garden watching what was going on. I was able to find the humor in it and tran translate that in a way that made other people laugh.
Right.
So yeah, and
Being relatable also, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've got a neighbour and I call her Old Ivy next door. That's not really her name. But she pops up in the stories and I write stuff just about the people that are around me.
Mhm.
My husband, my kids. My kids used to feature in it more often. They do less these days because they're a bit more grown up.
Mhm.
But when they were younger, things that used to drive me absolutely round the twist when they were teenagers, like putting empty cereal boxes back in the cupboard.
Oh, yours do
And
that too. Yes, I
yeah,
have
yeah,
two. I have
yeah,
two teenagers. That's
yeah. How
yeah.
you have to
Lots of
draw them a map to the bin.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, then came lockdown, and your blog took on a new life from what you called, I guess, COVID corner. How did that strange period shape your voice as a writer?
As I said before, I think it just gave me time to think more about what I was writing. And I think my writing improved then. I wasn't just dashing off a post while I was on my lunch hour at work or any of those things. So I think it gave me a little bit more time to write. And I was writing, I mean, I think I was obsessed with ice cream at the time and chocolate raisins and things like that. And I had this whole imaginary situation going on where my husband was Chancellor of the Exchequer in our house and he was controlling the Privy Purse. And I think it just allowed me to be more imaginative in what I was writing because there was time to do it.
Hmm.
And from those things, your confidence starts to grow, doesn't it?
Oh,
And
yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Especially
And
with audience reaction.
absolutely, and you find your your storytelling voice. And when I'm saying storytelling, I don't mean that I was just sitting there making a bunch of stuff up, because I wasn't. I was talking about all the odds and ends that were going on in my house. But it just, it just allowed me time to write properly, time to grow in confidence, and then pulling all those posts together and creating the narrative that went around them gave me the chance to write something more, write something longer. And I think I topped and tailed it with the book with a couple of short stories. The book's called The Big Blue Jobby, which isn't as rude as it sounds.
I'm glad you said it and not me, because that doesn't sound right coming from my Midwestern American accent.
Yeah, in the UK, jobby, it can mean a poo, but it also can mean a thing. So people will say, "Oh, it was a some sort of red jobby," and they'll mean it was a red thing. So, but so it's got a bit of a double meaning, really. And it came after one of the posts where I was talking about how my granny taught me to crochet, and she crocheted, 2 seconds, she'd crocheted this lovely, neat square. And me, age 6, had just produced this straggly, long, blue jobby, is what I said. So the name came from one of the posts, because somebody who followed me said that Big Blue Jobby would be an excellent name for your book. And I was like, yeah, that would. And my husband said, do not call it that under any circumstances. And I said, no, I'm going to call it that. I love that. And he's later admitted that I was right and he was wrong. Now, if he'd only do that more often, that would be perfect.
Right, exactly. So you said you chucked it on Amazon without expecting much, and then it hit number 50 in the UK Kindle chart.
Yeah.
So that must have really boosted your confidence and how, maybe changed how you thought of yourself as an author.
In a way, no, which sounds absolutely weird. But if you bear in mind that I knew nothing, I didn't know that traditional publishing existed. My husband just said, oh, I've heard that you can just put books on Amazon. And I was like, right, that's what we'll do then. And I had no idea that there was traditional publishing or that you could submit queries or any of those things. And so through on Amazon, and when it went up the Kindle charts and sold really well, I just assumed this happened to everyone. Because I had nothing to compare it with. I didn't know anyone who'd written a book. And so I just blithely assumed this was normal. I mean, I know it's not now, but at the time, I was just quite pleased. I thought, that's quite nice. And that was about it. I didn't get too excited.
How did you get such a large audience right away? Was it through your own network, through advertising, or just the right place at the right time?
No, obviously I think at the time I only had about 16,000 followers. So, but obviously some of those followers bought the book, which was really, really lovely. And I took out a £2 a day Facebook ad. And so I was just steadily selling a few copies a day from the ad. And then Amazon came along. I think the book came out in the August, and it was early the next year, and Amazon came along and said, we'd like to do a Kindle deal. And I just went, yeah, that's fine. And so they did a daily Kindle deal, and the sales just went through the roof from there.
Oh, amazing.
So, and I think it was the following May that they did the Kindle deal. So by that stage, I'd written 2 more books. So I released the other 2 books 1 month apart around the Kindle deal, so that if people who bought the book in the Kindle deal wanted to read more of my books, then they could have a look and see more, that wasn't just a one-off. However, again, I was operating on instinct rather than knowledge.
Well, it worked. Absolutely. Yeah. So your next book was Frock in Hell. And
yeah.
Does that have a double meaning as well? Or
well, yeah, I mean, it sounds a little bit naughty, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was really a story that had occurred to me a few years before when I was on a train going from London to Newcastle, but the train actually ended in Aberdeen. And I thought to myself, rather than get off in Newcastle, I wonder what would happen if I just simply disappeared and got off in Aberdeen at the end of the line. What would happen back home if I just carried on rather than getting off where I was supposed to and just disappeared? And when I was thinking about my first, what I call proper book, I just came back to that story and I thought, yeah, let's find out. So there's this lady called Katie Frock. She's having a bit of a midlife crisis and she gets on a train. She's supposed to be going to a job interview in York, but she's been feeling really dissatisfied with her life and not very supported by her family. She's feeling a bit taken for granted by them all. And so rather than get off in York, she just simply carries on to the end of the line in London and makes a new life in London. She does, however, write to her family to let them know she's okay. But so she doesn't kind of leave her family wondering on purpose, but she needs to find herself again. And then the book mainly centres around the people that she meets and the friendship group that she builds around herself in London, where she starts cooking for a cafe that she's been frequenting. She starts cooking Turkish street food and it really takes off. And I'll leave it there. If people want to read the book, I think that's enough information. But
is the main character a version of you who wants to just up and leave, or
no, not at all. I don't think she's like me. She can be sensible, but she can also be quite frivolous. And at the beginning of the book, I think she can be a little bit dissatisfied and perhaps not come across as the most sympathetic character right at the beginning. But I think she's a bit of a grower. You do come to understand and like her. She's a decent, good woman. She just needed some time out and to not be the family drudge. I think drudge is one of the words that I use to describe her in the book. And she just needs to come back to herself, to the person that she was before all of that. And you do start to like her a bit more as the book goes on.
Now, your next book after that was Losers Club, which really seemed to take off. Can you tell me about that one?
Yeah, I think that came out in October 2021. And I think while I was writing Frock in Hell, I'd been a bit addicted to Vicar of Dibley on TV. And so I thought I'd like to write a book like that, where there's a group and there's a central character who's vaguely sensible, but there's a group of quirky people around her and they all solve a crime. And that was kind of as far as I got, really.
Okay. You might have to explain that reference to an American audience. What is that?
Vicar of Dibley. Vicar of Dibley, yeah. It's a sitcom, very funny, starring Dawn French. It's really warm, really, really warm, lovely programme. Dawn's a vicar in it. Geraldine Granger is the name of her character. And it's the parish committee, the church committee. They're all the characters around her. And it's just really all the things that go on in the village and with her coming in to be their vicar. But I wasn't in any way copying it. It was more just the warmth of the programme that inspired me. And that year, I was really annoyed with Richard Osman because that year the Thursday Murder Club came out. And I thought, oh, he's copied my idea, which he hadn't really. I was a little bit annoyed at first because obviously I thought, well, he's so big, nobody's going to even notice my book. However, I think actually the opposite happened. I think that it was just really great timing because the genre really took off and I did quite well on his coattails. So the next year, Mumsnet, which I think you might have heard of, which is a big website for like mums, really. They go on and ask questions. And they had their summer recommended reads, best reads. And my Losers Club book was number 2. Marion Keyes was number 1. And Richard Osman was number 3.
There you go. That must have been very satisfying.
I was like, in your face, Richard Osman.
Yeah. Well, whatever you did worked, and you left your day job in 2023 to write full time.
Yeah, yeah.
What convinced you to make that leap?
We'd been at the self-publishing show in, I think it was 2022. Yeah, which was about 8 months after Losers Club had come out. And I think I'd written the second one and it was coming out the following month. And all these authors were on the stage at the self-publishing show talking about how they'd left their jobs and were now writing full-time and living the dream. And my husband turned around to me and said, I reckon that could be you by Christmas. And I was just really shocked that he had that much faith in me, because it had never occurred to me that I could actually do this full-time.
Mm-hmm.
So when he said that, I was so surprised. I was like, no way, absolutely no way. And he said, oh, yes, way. And I think it was, he wasn't quite right. It was the January when I actually walked away from my job. So I missed Christmas. But I think that the books were starting to earn more than I was earning at work. So it seemed worth taking the risk. And quite a few people said to me, you know, were you not worried? Was it not a huge risk to take? And I said, well, yeah, I was worried about walking away from a salary and all, you know, and it was a good salary. But what's the worst that can happen? You go and find another job, don't you?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
having the opportunity to do something that you love and make a living from it, you know, that's worth its weight in gold. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I walked away from the job, but we were terrified, but it somehow worked. We're still here. We're making a living. We're not rich, you know, gloriously rich or anything, but we still got a roof over our heads and food on the table. And that's the most you can really ask for, isn't it?
Yeah, that's great. And you're branching also off into podcasting, and Losers Club has been optioned for film and TV. It sounds like you're keeping very busy. Tell me about I guess first more about the podcast and then the TV option.
Well, the podcast, I was interviewed in December 23 and asked about my hobbies. And I thought, goodness, writing was my hobby. What's my hobby now? Now writing's my job. I need a hobby. Mm-hmm. And so I mentioned to a friend of mine that I was thinking about doing podcasting as a hobby. And we were out a few months later and she said to me, she's a fellow Facebook blogger, and she said to me, this podcasting thing, do you think we could do something together? And I was like, yes, that would be brilliant. It took us another year to actually get as far as doing the podcast because we both had our own commitments. However, the first series is now out. The podcast's called Hear Me Roar. So if you search Spotify for Hear Me Roar Yvonne, then you'll find the right one. And I had a lot of help from a couple of people. One is a fellow Michigan author. She's called Jackie Lentz. And the other person is Michelle Ford. She already has a big podcast, and her podcast called Two Women Chatting. And they both were so incredibly helpful in getting it started, because I did not have a clue. Learning how to mix sound and edit sound, create videos and all sorts of things, and just setting up a YouTube channel, all these things. I'd never done any of them before. So it was the steepest learning curve. But you know what? I learned writing, I've learned marketing, I've learned an awful lot to do with the books. I thought, right, I'll give this a go. And I just threw myself into it. And watched
Yeah.
loads of YouTube videos on it and somehow managed to do it.
Well, now it's a good time to do it too, because there's a lot of there are a lot of high tech tools. AI can help, with
Hmm.
editing and things like that. So,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, not that it's easy. It's part of what I do for a living too. So,
Well, we're
but
yet to make any money from it, but we have been booked as a duo to do a live stage show in London on the 4th of October. So that's going to be interesting.
wonderful. That's great. And Losers Club is going to be a streaming TV series or up on the big screen,
I
or
don't
how's that
I
going to work?
don't know. It was optioned for TV. I'd been up in Scotland and I got home, my husband said, "Have you looked at your emails?" I said, "Well, no, I've just been driving for 6 hours." And he said, "Take a look at your emails." And there was an email in there from some producers. And I mean, if we all get these spam emails about people, from fake TV producers and wanting to option, and it's all a load of rubbish. I think most authors get that sort of thing.
Mhm.
However, this email read differently. These people had done their research. They knew about my blog and followed my blog. And I instinctively knew that this was different. This was probably real. And a few weeks later, I found myself on a Zoom to Hollywood. And I was just
Wow,
sitting there pinching myself. And the weird thing is, they were so excited to meet me and they were fangirling out because they were meeting me. And I was sitting there thinking, what on earth is going on?
that's amazing. That's
And
wonderful.
I know, and they said to me, they said, "Who would you like to play the lead male character?" And I said, "Neil Tennant." Well, the, he's from a band called the Pet Shop Boys.
Mhm.
I meant David Tennant.
Well, right, Pet Shop Boys or Doctor Who,
Yeah,
one of the,
yeah.
yeah,
There was just this little awkward pause. And I think my husband said, "Did you mean David Tennant?" I was like, "Yes, him."
that's funny. So that's great. That's something, if you got that far as a Zoom meeting with the Hollywood executives, that's great news. I
Yeah,
know
but it
a lot of, a lot of these projects don't actually get made, but it sounds like you've got some real interest.
Well, it was one of those real pinch me moments where you're like, this can't really be happening, not in my life. However, it did happen and it was real. And the producers, they're absolutely lovely people. They've kept me updated and they're fantastic. And out of that, I ended up with an agent and all the fancy things. And another weird and wonderful thing that's just happened in the past day or two, so this is hot off the press,
Hmm.
is that Game of Trust, the eighth book in my Losers Club series, has been longlisted for a Comedy Women in Print prize. And that's a big one. That's one of the big award things. And I'm absolutely cock a hoop because I wrote to them last year and I said, "Do you think you would ever allow self-published people to enter?" And the founder, a lovely lady called Helen Lederer, she wrote back to me and she said, "Well, we would love to do that, but we would have to find a sponsor for it." Anyway, they must have gone off and done it because this year, for the first time, they allowed self-published people to enter the award. So I put my book forward and I seriously did not expect anything. I was really bracing myself for disappointment because I thought, there's so many talented people. It's going to be amazing if I make it, but if I don't, that's okay too. And a couple of days ago, I was able to break the news that I'd been longlisted. So absolutely cock a hoop.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And that's something that Ally has been working on for years and years, getting self-published books accepted at these mainstream awards. So you're a groundbreaker.
Well, I just feel that even if my book doesn't get shortlisted or doesn't get any further, I, f- I already feel like a winner because I don't know if it was me that, prompted anything, but I, I gave it a go and maybe that sparked something. Maybe other self-published writers were emailing them as well. But I do feel like whatever happens with my book, I feel like I've achieved something, which is absolutely brilliant. So,
well, looking back at your journey from Facebook blog to best-selling author and podcaster and now Hollywood writer, possibly, what advice would you give someone who's sitting on an idea but feels scared to put themselves out there the way you did?
Every single time I've put myself out there, I've felt way out of my comfort zone. And my advice is just what I said earlier. Put yourself out of your comfort zone, because that is how you discover what you're capable of. And I think the other thing I always say to people is build your cheerleading squad around you. That's really important. You've got to have people around you who believe in you. But more importantly, you've got to believe them when they say that you can do something, and listen to them, take on board what they're saying, because it's too easy to go, no, I couldn't do that. When other people are telling you you can, actually listen and just go ahead and do it. That's my advice.
That's wonderful advice. Well, thank you, Yvonne. This has been a wonderful conversation, and it sounds like you are living the indie publisher's dream, or the indie author's dream right now.
Well, who knows? I mean, it's an awful lot of luck at the end of the day, isn't it?
Well, it takes talent as well, too. So
you've got to be able to do it, but it takes a good spoonful of luck, and I do think that I've probably had more than my fair share here.
Right. So thank you, Yvonne. Thank you for talking to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It's been lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Inspirational Indie Authors. I'm Howard Lovey, Content and Communications Manager at the Alliance of Independent Authors and book editor at howardlovey.com. This podcast stream is proudly sponsored by BookVault. Sell high-quality print-on-demand books directly to readers worldwide and earn maximum royalties selling directly. Automate fulfillment and create stunning special editions with BookVault Bespoke. Visit bookvault.app today for an instant quote. If you are a member of Ally and would like to be considered for the show, please write to me at howard@allianceindependentauthors.org and tell me what inspires you and how you can inspire other authors. As always, find more author advice, tips, and tools at our Self-Publishing Advice Center, selfpublishingadvice.org. And if you haven't already, we invite you to join our organization and become a self-publishing ally. You can do that at allianceindependentauthors.org.